This is Fight Capital, where we step into the ring of combat sports business. I'm your host, Ryan Rappaport. Today, I'm joined by Lydia Des Dolles. Lydia is Ireland's first female combat sports presenter. She's a podcast host, media personality, and you can find her ringside and on the socials on FightConnectTV. Lydia, so happy to have you here today. How are you and where are you joining from?
I'm so thrilled to be on. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invite. And I'm in a place called Waterford in Ireland, which is southeast Ireland. So it's about 2 hours south of Dublin, which is the capital. I think a lot of people know Dublin, but I have a little house in the countryside down here. So when I'm not at events and fight nights and fight weeks, I'm in the countryside.
Hey, we got to get out of the cities. I think that's important.
Yes.
Well, I've been able to dig a lot into your work in the past, and you have such an interesting backstory. Just the fact that you were a music artist, and then several years back, you made this transition into combat sports media and presenting. And can you just walk me through that journey? Because that's a different one, and I'm just curious what led to that and what took you to where you are today.
Yeah, it's so when anytime I recount my life experiences or my journey to date, I always sort of just feel like I've lived many lifestyles or life. I've been kind of reincarnated every decade. I've had this like complete lifestyle change. But yeah, so I was in music for like the best part of a decade in my 20s. I always felt growing up that music was kind of in my core. I wasn't really and not like a performer where I was like in theater and like all that kind of stuff. I just found something inside me was like you're meant to be a singer. And then it wasn't until I was like in my late teens, early 20s that I was like maybe I should try give this a stab because otherwise I'm just going to get myself into like working in a career that I don't really like or I'm not passionate about. So I'd never sang before. So I felt like I wanted to be a singer or it was my calling, but I'd never actually sang in front of anyone before. So it was a very weird situation to find myself in. And I had auditioned with a couple of bands and stuff. And they were probably like, she's awful because I was like so quiet into the mic. But then I found my bandmate Daniel. We randomly met at a house party one night, and it was so serendipitous how he approached me from the side like corner of the room and was like, do you sing? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a rock star, total like 20-year-olds like confidence and like a few Guinness on me at that stage. And I was just like, no, but I always wanted to be. And he was like, oh, we should start a band. So he was basically like going off of how I looked. At the time I was really cool. I had like bleach blonde hair. I was real rock and roll. I looked the parts, but he had no idea if I could sing. But then, we recorded. I actually recorded on the floor of my wardrobe. I brought the mic cable in, and I sang like the chorus on a song that he had written. And he was like, "It's amazing," and I was like, "It's absolutely terrible." But I got a little bit more confidence. I believed in his belief in me, and yeah, we went on this insane journey for like the best part of a decade, touring the world and recording records. And yeah, it was one of the most difficult, challenging, but also now in hindsight looking back, like one of the most incredible experiences that anyone could go on. And it ended towards the end of my 20s. We not only did we sound like Fleetwood Mac, but we also acted like Fleetwood Mac as well. So it went absolutely horribly wrong at the end. And we all fell out. Well, I fell out with the band mainly. We went our separate ways, and I was really lost for a long time. Coming into my 30s, and I just was so devastated that I wasn't able to properly handle the fallout of like a band situation like that and everything that was happening with the kind of breakdown of the relationships. Um, so it was a very, very, dark time for me. And out of nowhere, I was really having this sort of midlife crisis of like, okay, who am I? What am I? What do I do now that, music is finished? And my whole identity had been wrapped up in it. And it was really, I was out one night with one of my best friends, and her now husband is a judo black belt, and I was wrestling him in the pub. Now, I never wrestled before, so I didn't know what I was doing, but he was basically like, leave me alone and go to a gym and learn how to wrestle because you're really, really freakishly strong and you really enjoy it. And I was like, no, I don't do sport. I'm a singer, blah, blah, the usual thing. But he kept on at me and he was like, come to my gym. I'll do basic wrestling, jiu-jitsu, like warm-ups, moves with you and see how you get on. So I did. And I was extremely unfit. I was extremely unhealthy. I had a really bad lifestyle because I was still living a rock and roll lifestyle, but I wasn't in a band anymore. So I was really just a loser that had a drink problem. So I ended up going to his judo gym, and we done a couple of weeks training, and then he was like, okay, you have to fly your wings, you should join a jiu-jitsu academy. And I ended up going to a gym about an hour away from where I lived, and it was called East Coast Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Dunleary in Dublin. And yeah, it changed my life. Within 3 months I had quit drinking, I had quit, I was taking a lot of prescription drugs, not prescribed. I was, a lot of Xanax, a lot of kind of like helped my mind stay calm and not detach myself, I suppose, from everything that was going on in my life. So within 3 months, I had stopped everything. I had stopped drinking. I had stopped smoking. I had started eating clean. I started eating keto. I was training 6 days a week, and then I started competing. So within 6 months, I was like doing the European Championships at white belt in jiu-jitsu, but it was so huge for me because I literally had come from, a very, very dark, dangerous place. It was a slippery slope. And yeah, jiu-jitsu changed my life, and I just found myself it was the coolest thing ever for me. Like and it still is. I mean, it's, the main bulk of my happiness in my life currently. It still is. Um, but it was just this amazing community. It was healthy. It was cool. It was like badass. It was challenging. It was difficult. It was really rewarding. It was everything that I needed that I'd never found before. So it was the best thing ever. And that then led on to, people saying like, oh, I didn't know that there was an MMA fight on. Oh, I didn't know that this was on. Oh, I didn't know this person done kickboxing. What is jiu-jitsu? And I was like, how did I not know about this sport? How did I not know about all these different things that are going on in the community? And my brother done MMA like years ago, and boxing as well, but I still, knew, okay, he does this sort of like martial art thing. And then my granddad done boxing and he done boxing, but I have no real interest in it. So I didn't really know a lot. And yeah, so that's when I started going, okay, there's something in this and somebody really needs to like shed a light on what's going on. And I really didn't know how to do it. So I literally just started buying tickets to like MMA shows, boxing shows, Muay Thai shows, and sitting by myself front row with Snapchat and like Facebook and just taking pictures and taking videos. And it really caught on, and there was nobody doing it. And literally that is how it started. It was so simple, so organic. And now it's like it's its own like monster. It's been really, really insane and beautiful to watch it grow over the last 8 years.
The BJJ effect.
Yes.
You're one of many people who have had those stories that they're in a dark place, they don't have a path, and then they find martial arts one way or another, and that just opens up the door for them, whether it's professionally like it did for you, or spiritually, or mentally. There's just so much in that, the discipline and the hard training. And it's very cool to see someone like yourself come from that, go from the music stage to the world stage, fighting and listening to all of these amazing other broadcasters as well. Is there anyone that you looked at as you were coming up that was really being the presenter or broadcaster that you wanted to be? And did you emulate them, or did you learn from them? How did you approach that that evolution of your craft?
Do you know what? There really wasn't. And I think that was a reason why it spurred me on to, do something to kind of create a platform, or to be a voice to for these fighters to be able to channel, whatever it was that they needed to channel, whether it's their story or their sponsors or whatever it was. But there was nobody in my field, everybody that was working in the industry, it's sort of this very technical approach. It's this very sort of news reporter approach. Everything's very serious. It's a very, technical breakdown of what's happening in the sport. But it's not, it's changed. The landscape has changed massively over the last 8 years. But at that time, I was like, God, this stuff is so boring. And this industry is so much, it's so cool and so much fun happening. And there's so much opportunity to like do something really cool. So what I wanted to create was a platform that would have content and have interviews that, if you were the MMA fan or if you were the martial arts fan and then your partner was sat next to you and they have no clue about any of it, that they'd still be able to sit down and watch the content and enjoy it. They'd still be able to watch an interview, not know anything about the sport, but go, God, that was really good. I really enjoyed that. So being informative, being, respectful to the sport and to the athlete, but also telling a story and telling it in a really inviting, entertaining way. So I hope that I've tried to, or I've created that in some kind of format, but there really wasn't. And whatever about, in general, people to look up to at that time, there wasn't even women, there was no women doing it, which is a whole other, ball game, and a whole other kind of, topic of conversation, I suppose. But and there could be someone watching this that'll go, oh, well, I'm doing this 15 years and I'm female, or I'm like that, but I didn't know about it. That's the point. There was no one accessible to me at that time. So I just had to go do it for myself.
Well, I feel like combat sports is a pretty male dominated industry, particularly like on the presenter side. There's definitely a glass ceiling to break there. But I was watching your coverage of the recent Taylor Cameron fight, and you're just so natural and you bring this energy that I think is like a missing piece of the puzzle for a lot of these broadcasts, right? And with content creators and the ability to be able to show more of your personality, how have you leveraged that growth that you've had to be a presenter and bring a little bit different flavor to the broadcasts?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And it's a very relevant question because, when I started to gain traction and when I started to get numbers and when I started to get a little bit of, I suppose, notoriety for what I was doing, I started kind of moving goalposts for myself. So, oh, maybe I could do this, or maybe I could do that, or maybe I could, approach this TV company or this promoter and approach them with ideas that I have. I'm extremely creative. I have loads of ideas. I've constant flow of, oh my God, this would be amazing. And it always comes back to, the opportunity or the money. It's always like those two things. And, I quickly found out that the entertainment industry, not just the fight industry, but the entertainment industry is still very outdated in terms of the type of female that it wants to hire to represent their broadcaster or their promoter or whatever it might be, be a model. It really is just very what I would call vanilla. And I don't mean that in a sense of to insult anyone or to, I'm not talking about anyone in particular. I'm just talking about a general blanket statement. It's an observation that, it's almost like they don't want to have females to have that much of a, I don't know if it's an opinion, but that much of a character. Whereas if we look at, I just worked last week, as you say, the Taylor Cameron show with Ariel Helwani. And this is somebody who's created an incredible legacy, an incredible career for himself by being himself, and he, especially at the start, he was so popular on YouTube and stuff for having that awkward kind of like weird sort of kind of way of being that ended up being his main shtick and his main selling point, really. And it was because he was given the opportunities and allowed to be himself. And now because he's at a stage in his career, he can completely be himself. And it works beautifully. And I don't actually have the answer for why it is that these broadcasters are frightened to take a risk And, even on their risky bets, they're still kind of safe bets. They're like, oh, this is a risky hire, but it's safe, there's still a safety in it. So I don't really know. I mean, I'd love to sit down with some kind of like major network people and be like, what exactly is it? And, I have friends who say to me, you look good, you sound good, you are passionate about the sport, you're like more caring and energetic about it than anyone we know. Why aren't you getting all these massive, I have friends that are like, why aren't the UFC hiring you? And I'm like, because it's the UFC. What are you talking about? It's like the biggest organization in the world. They're like, they should hire you. Like, you're really good. I'm like, Christ, I love that you're my friends. Like, there's such hype people, but it's kind of that sort of way, But I mean, I don't know. I maybe I don't know. I don't know. I have my, how I feel, and I try not to get too like hard to buy it, like, oh, I'm not being hard or anything like that, because I'm always working. But there's always things that you look at and you go, I could have done a good job there, or I could have. There's nothing more frustrating than when you see someone be hired and behind the scenes that they really don't care about the sport, and they really don't care about like the integrity of the sport, like their job, their responsibility, the honor that it is to be that middleman between the fighter and telling the story to the viewer at home. I actually do take a lot of pride in having a platform like that and being able to speak to fighters, especially being the first person that they usually speak to when they come out of the ring or the cage, that quickly say hello or, well done, hugs to the coaches, and then they're straight into you for the post-fight interview. So it's a you're a tiny part of the journey in it. So you have to treat it with a lot of respect and a lot of dignity and a lot of humility as well.
Oh, I love the Ariel reference to one. Great job interviewing him. That must have been so cool.
Thank
I
you.
would I would geek out. I don't know if you ever have those experiences where you're meeting people and you're like, ah, and like I had that happen with Gary Vaynerchuk once, where I'd been following him for quite some time, and I got to meet him, and I was just like, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, I'm wearing your shoes, blah. And it's that energy, right? I think is definitely, I can see that in your work and the way you
Yeah.
kind of have this approach where you're talking with people, but you're actually connecting with them, right?
Mhm.
And as someone who's like as creative and hard working for yourself, how are you identifying those opportunities that you're chasing and going after? Because there has to be some planning into that. I mean, you don't just make those changes overnight, right?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I found with Fight Connect TV is there has been people along the way that have, worked for periods of time with me in like whether it is podcasts or content pieces or, business kind of end of things. So I've had people along the way that I've worked with, but essentially it's been me for these 8 years that's, been the creative director, the producer, the content creator, like literally doing the on-screen talent, like doing everything. And what I found is that it can be very difficult while you're doing the job to kind of take a step back and to analyze, okay, what's working, what's not, what is this a good piece of content? Is this crap? Should we dump this? So what like currently at the moment, I feel like I'm in a bit of a down period. So I've taken some time away from it because I have to do it. I have to take time away to assess and realize, okay, what's working, what's not. I've done this for 8 years. It is my main career. So, it's not just, unfortunately, things change as you get older and the more you work in businesses, that it's not a kind of a weekend hustle for me anymore, or like a cool way for me to spend the weekend when I'm trying to stay out of the pub or stay out of partying. Now I actually kind of, want to buy a house and I want to buy a new car, and, there's all these things that and I want to scale my business. So you have to be a bit of an adult as the kind of years go on. So looking at the opportunities, for me, it really is just kind of taking a step back and sort of really just sitting and being calm. I kind of, a lot of my business decisions and a lot of my sort of kind of life decisions, they all sort of tie into my spirituality and my sort of lifestyle and how I am in general. And, I definitely feel that when work is good and work is plenty, I find it very hard to walk away or to stop it. And sometimes you take the wrong opportunities as a result of that because you're just saying yes to everybody and everything. So you really just have to take some time out, get grounded, get quiet with yourself, and ask yourself, what actually do I want here? Like, what do I want to happen? Do I want to be doing events every week where I'm on the road and I'm living in hotels from Wednesday to Sunday and I don't get to do jiu-jitsu, I don't get to eat clean, I don't get to walk my dogs, I don't get to go to bed at 9 p.m. and wake up at 5:30 and see the sunrise? So all these little things have changed over the years, and now I have to kind of sit and go, okay, what does Lydia want? Because when Lydia is working, in her, working towards her higher self or operating from her higher self, that means that Lydia is operating at 100% or close to it. And therefore, the business side of FightConnectTV is also operating at that level as well. So it's very difficult. I haven't mastered it yet, but I'm trying to figure it out.
I don't know. I think I interviewed Max Griffin a couple days ago. One of the really cool things that he said was, "I'm a white belt. I'm a white belt out here in business. I'm still a white belt out here in life. I'm trying to soak it all in." And I just love that approach too, because the second you start thinking you know something is when you probably are missing something else, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that you were just saying that I think is kind of a missing factor. It's funny because it's such an important part of fighting, or you find it often where people's spirituality, whatever your beliefs in as a power, right? It's something that kind of pushes you forward. All the fighters are always thanking God, or, thanking Allah, all of these people that are being driven by their spirituality. When you're in a physical combat situation, that makes more sense. But I don't think people look at it enough from their professional standpoints as well. And more so anytime today, your job is just a big representation and big part of your life. So how do you integrate those two things and use them? It seems like you're getting a good basis for that, though.
100%. And, that's, I think, the transition in my personal life from music to jiu-jitsu to this industry, there was a lot of personal growth and a lot of personal development in that time. When I was at referencing that point in jiu-jitsu and, the getting clean and having this like new lifestyle, um, I then had to go fix my mind essentially, because my mind was, okay, why is somebody drinking too much? Why is someone partying too much? Why is someone disassociating? Like, that wasn't just because I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu. That was because there was something deeper going on. So I had to go and like get a therapist. I had to do, I done lots of um healing circles, meditation groups, all, like, I really tried absolutely everything. And that was the gift that jiu-jitsu gave me, because I kept saying to myself, like, God, it makes me even a little bit like overwhelmed now. But about a year into jiu-jitsu, I was like, if I hadn't have taken that risk, if I hadn't have gone to that first jiu-jitsu class, I would never know this life. Like, I just would not know this life. But there has been points in my life where I feel that I'm completely guided, and I feel the presence of a higher self, a higher power, a spiritual team, a spirit guide. I don't know what it is, who it is, where they are, what it, I've no concept of it, but I feel that they work through me and they guide me in a particular way. And when I say then about like getting quiet and trying to reassess everything and figure it out, like where I'm going to go next, that really is me just calming everything down so I can listen to that internal voice or that spiritual team or whoever it is. But there are points in my, even down to like interviewing, it was actually a moment with I interviewed Gary Cully, who's an Irish fighter. He had a big a couple of great performances on Matchroom, and he was on the Taylor Cameron card co-main event, and we were at the press conference and I was interviewing him, and I had done literally about 15 interviews before him. He was really tired. I didn't get a chance to speak to him all week. I said to, I was like, he's like, oh, I'm so tired, Lydia. Will we do it again? And I was like, no, because we won't. We're both tired. Let's just get it out of the way and do it. And we done it. And while I was talking to him, there was like, can only describe it as like a swirl of energy that came from my feet the whole way to the top of my head. And it's like I'm just in this flow. And it's like jujitsu flow. It's like I'm in the flow of the conversation, I'm in the flow of the interview, the moment. And that's all I can really reference it. It's like a flow of energy that lifts me. So even in those moments when I'm absolutely exhausted and I'm like, what the hell am I going to talk to this person about? And like, I'm sick of asking the same questions, something will take over me and will just carry me through it. And then I'll look back and go, oh, that was actually a pretty good interview. I'm delighted I've done that now. So I do take a lot of inspiration and reference from my spiritual beliefs, like, and I also believe that when people say, you know, like the feedback that I get will say from the boxing fans or the martial arts fans that I meet when I'm at events or out or whatever it might be, is that, you've got such a good energy, you've got such high energy, you're always so like friendly and bubbly and blah, blah. And that's literally because I'm working in my higher self. I'm basically my divine being. I'm working in my passion. I'm working in, my calling, and I'm happy and grateful and, you know, just delighted to be there and to be doing it. And that's the difference, because if I was miserable and if I hated doing it and I was like, God, I hate my job. Oh, I don't want to go to this job. I have to do it. That would translate on camera. So I really just feel that by taking everything that I've learned from my spiritual journey and implement it into work, and my jiu-jitsu journey and implement it into work, you just create this really lovely 360 flow of just good energy, high energy, and passionate energy.
We are on the same spiritual practice level, just, FYI. I'm a huge believer in energy and positive energy and how you direct that. And all of that work, I mean, that's a lot of work, right? I mean, that's what people don't like. I meditate every day, but those first 5 minutes meditating, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to twitch. I'm like, is something biting me? Like, what's going on? Is there a
Yeah.
bug? But it's the work, right? It's putting in that work. And when I was listening to your interviews, I mean, you sound like you knew, like you were like going back to like your flow state, right? You were bonding with this person, you were knowledgeable, you knew what was going on. Can you give me a little bit of insight into how you prepare for these combat sports events, and like what do you do to get ready to have these interviews and those conversations?
Absolutely nothing. Genuinely, absolutely nothing. And I'm honestly not even joking in terms of my preparation for events. I know who's on the cards. I know. Okay, so I work in this sport. When I say nothing, I don't mean that I blindly go into the situation, but um I know the sport inside out. I know, especially we'll take reference to Taylor Cameron. I know every fighter that's on the card because I've worked with them over the last 8 years. I'm a fan of the sport anyway, so I'm constantly like online, like finding out this fight, that fight fell through. That's this person's record. That's this person. So I know the fighter, but if I was covering a card and there was a fighter or fighters on there that I didn't know about, then I would do my research and I would go full FBI. So I like to, I'm very observant. So even stuff like, just say I'm interviewing you, I'm going to try and find your social. I'm going to try and scan your social, see if you have kids, see if you have like a dog. Do you like horse riding? Do you swim in the ocean? So I'm learning about you as a person. And then I use that in the interview. So if I, for example, get the sense that somebody is very quiet, shy, doesn't really like to do interviews, I will tailor how I approach them and the questions that I ask around that. If I'm interviewing somebody like Eddie Hearn or Frank Smith, these are like, CEOs, owners of Matchroom Boxing, Matchroom Sports, like the biggest organization globally. Then I'm not going to say like, so how are your kids? Or, what did you feed your dog today? I'm not going to be inappropriate. I'm not going to be, I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to know that they just want to talk about the business and I don't have that relationship with them that I can like joke and be on that level. So you cater the interview to me I catered the interview to how well I know the person off camera. So if I know them well enough, I can have a little bit of a banter. And also carried me as well as I'm extremely respectful. So if I'm privy to a conversation off camera, I'll never repeat that. If it was something a little bit like, oh God, that'll get me good numbers there. I always say, hey, listen, remember that conversation? Do you reckon, could I bring that up? No. Okay, cool, no problem. And I've done that. So what's happened is over 8 years, I've earned respect from fighters because they know that I'm not out for clickbait. They know I'm not out to just get a few numbers on the back of them. I'm always conscious of how that will make a team feel, a fighter feel, a person feel. And remembering that they're human. They might be fighters, they might have high profile profiles, but they still go home at night and open their Instagram and, feel bad about a DM. So because I have an insight into how I feel in this industry, I just, you know, my moral compass is treat others as you would want to be treated yourself. That's how I operate. And that's kind of just how I kind of navigate the space, I suppose. But just being extremely informed and trying to learn cool, kooky little things about them. It's kind of like Nardwar, but for Nardwar. Do you know Nardwar?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
know Nardwar. Yeah, 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 yeah. Very, very authentic, right? And like awkward, and
Yeah.
in that awkward and authentic energy is where the comedy comes, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm not handing them gifts like Narwhal does and like stuff like that, but it's the same kind of like idea. And then I think like, actually, when you're asking me about, inspirations within the sport, there wasn't anyone doing this, but I would have taken like great inspiration growing up from Oprah Winfrey. And I know that's such a basic or like, probably a big jump, but if you actually break down how Oprah Winfrey does interviews, she's so like genius at it because she hits a nerve with anyone, whether it's a celebrity or just someone in her audience. She's able to tap into an emotional like field with them that gets them to open up and gets them to feel quite relaxed and safe, and they get a really good interview. So people like Oprah, we had in the UK there was a chat show host called Parkinson. He's Michael Parkinson. He's recently retired. Graham Norton, I don't know if you know if Graham
I
Norton
know
is
Graham. Yeah.
Irish, and the Graham Norton show. So it's all these people who have this sort of they've stayed true to themselves to a point, because obviously they're on TV. No one is as they seem. Everyone's puts on a little show for TV, but they're very much themselves. And then they're able to make the guest feel safe, secure, and they open up into the style of interview that they want to portray onto the show. So that's kind of where I grab. There's no set thing, but that's kind of the main way that I grab stuff. And the one thing I will say is I've never written down questions. Even with my podcast, I've never done it, and to the point that it's actually probably to my detriment, where I've gone, God, I really should probably like write down stuff. But I just love conversation, and I love the art of conversation, and I really just love it to flow and to just, they could be talking about the pharmaceutical industry if I have someone on the podcast, because the podcast that I do is not just fighters. And then they could mention something about, Reiki or healing energy. And then I'm like, okay, that's the route. We'll go down that route. So screw while you're here. We'll go. So I love the freedom of that and the flow of conversation. So I think that's really what it is in terms of like a preparation.
Inauthenticity reeks. And it is, if you're talking with someone and you're not feeling like they're not involved or they don't care or they didn't do the
Yeah.
work, you just feel that. And I'm sure that authentic approach that you're bringing to the table is part of the reason why you're having success. And the two things, the 8 years, right? The amount of time to get you to where you're at now and the ups and downs, because everything is cyclical. To do
Mm-hmm.
that and having put in that work, that is the authenticity. You learn the sport, you learned the research, and you said I do no prep, but the reality is you've already done the work, right? You've done the prep.
Well,
You
that's
watched
it.
the
Yeah.
boxing. I mean, I saw Tyson Fury wearing a Fight Connect TV shirt,
Yes.
so people are involved. Like people know your brand, and you've done obviously a great job of growing that and success. But what do you attribute that to from the Fight Connect side? Is there anything particularly that you can put your finger on and be like, oh, that's how I'm progressing. That's how I'm growing this?
Consistency, 100% consistency, and creating the same content every week that fans can uh, get behind. Probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is if you look at um, TV scheduling, so again, soaps. I'm not sure what the big soaps are over in the States, but if you look at like in the UK and Ireland, there is Coronation Street and EastEnders. Okay, so why have these shows become so popular? Okay, people are invested in what's going on in them. They're invested in the characters. They're invested in the safety of the parasocial relationship. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, we know that we're going to watch EastEnders is going to be on. We have people that sit at home from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. and watch soap stars and be invested in this parasocial relationship with like these people on TV. And, then the next day they're in work and like, oh my God, did you see what Phil Mitchell done? Or did you see what this person done? And they're invested in it. And it's almost like that cyclical thing of they watch it every week, so they're invested. So I kind of took a lot of inspiration from how TV scheduling works. And I was like, okay, so every, Saturday night we cover an event. Sunday, all the interviews go up. Monday, it's an Instagram live. Tuesday, it's this. Wednesday, it's this. And that's what I've done for the main bulk of the last 8 years, is just having a consistent cycle of content, and people know that, okay, this is what we're going to get on this night, this is what we're going to get. It's the same thing like with your podcast. Like you'll have a day that you have in mind to put your podcast out, and then people can get invested and excited and be like, oh my God, amazing, like the podcast is out today, this is going to be brilliant, like I must make sure to tune in and listen or watch it. And for me, even like, again, I kind of treat my business the same way that I kind of am as a fan. So like even when I am a fan of other people's podcasts or other people's content and they don't post for like 2 months, I'm like, oh, come on, this stuff is so good. Please put another podcast, which is totally the polar opposite to what I just said about what's happening at the moment, is that I've taken this massive break with FightConnectTV because I have to do it. Like there's being consistent, and then there's like having a need to pull back and change things up a little bit. But to answer your question on what I think the main bulk of the success was down to, it was consistency. It was then being active in meeting people, meeting fighters, meeting coaches, and then them meeting me, and I'm a really nice person. And I'm a good person, and I'm really passionate about the industry that I'm in. So I really just don't think that you can fake that. And I think that people see that I am genuine in me as a person and what I'm doing. And I think it's just all encompassing. It all sort of comes together, because then that relationship and that energy translates on camera. And then the fight, or the fight fans, they're like, oh, there's something here. This girl is different, So I think you just have to coin your own thing and just stay true to it and stay honest and connected to it. And you'll see the fruits of it. It'll just naturally unfold, because none of this was a plan. This just all unfolded in front of me. Like the way I am in the industry, the content is, the way I'm spoken about in rooms that I'm not in, all that is not planned. That's just as things have unfolded.
And something you can't control.
Definitely. Definitely not. Definitely not in this industry anyway. 100% not, bad bad energy, or bad energy travels, especially in this industry. And there's a lot of chat. It's still a very small community, People love to talk, and that's probably another thing as well, is that I've never gotten myself into like political, situations. I've never chosen sides. I've never been biased. I treat everyone with respect, and there obviously are people that I want to win in situations. There are friends that I have, but I don't show that in interviews. And if a friend of mine loses and I interview them, I'm like honest. I'm like, you fought a good fight, but you weren't the better man on the day, or you weren't the better woman on the day. And I just think everyone respects that. You still like, whether you win or lose in this industry, it's, you're doing more than most. That's what the one thing that I try to, get across to like fight fans, is they can be so brutal, especially online with like fighters when they lose. I'm like, do you even know how difficult, a 2 hour MMA session is? Do you know how difficult boxing sparring is? Like, like, you have no idea. And I think that's a big point as well, is that the little amount of training that I do, obviously I train jiu-jitsu every day, but like I've done Muay Thai, I've done MMA. I don't do a lot of sparring in those, because I don't want to get, I've gotten enough injuries in jiu-jitsu where I'm like, I don't want my nose broken, I don't want my teeth fall out. So, I don't really aspire heavy when I do train these sports, but I have sparred enough to know what it's like to be hit in the face, to be hit in the nose. And I'm like, these people do this every day, maybe twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. And you are going to sit with your bag of Doritos and then tell them that they're a loser. It's just not for me.
One of my biggest pet peeves, one as a practitioner, knowing what goes into that and just knowing what it takes for someone to step into that cage, that or that ring, or the mat, whatever you're moving on to. And I have a few friends who are professional fighters, and they show me the things people send them. And we're talking mid-level popularity, like they can walk around the street and people will recognize them, and people just say the most insane things over these chats, like sending them weird photos, threatening their lives. And I'm like, if this person was in front of you, they might kill you. But I also,
Yes.
one of the reasons why I love the when the trolls show up to the gym and think they have a chance and they want to spar with this person, and the fighters are just like, okay, let's do this. Yeah, you want to see what it's like
Mm-hmm.
to, you think you got this. So no, I love that. And then going back to your authenticity and like how you're representing the sport and yourself, it comes out in your interviews. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people are gravitating towards you while you're having the success. And after putting in that hard work, right, that you're able to kind of bond and build more for yourself as you have this base. And I love it. And I honestly feel like I could talk to you all day. And I want to be respectful of your time. And I think there's maybe a further conversation down. But what's next for you, and for everyone who's listening and going to be reading the written content I put out? How can they support you, and what do you want to see from other people in terms of having them join and follow you along this journey?
Yeah, I think, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your sentiment there. Thank you. I suppose, if you have whoever's listening to your stuff and they're fans of the sport, just follow along with Fight Connect TV journey. Follow me on social. I always put everything that's new content and everything that's going on up there. And yeah, like obviously Taylor Cameron Fight Week was huge for us in Ireland. I've just moved back home to Ireland from the UK, so I'm really invested in now shedding another light on the Irish scene over here, because I've been away for so long and I feel like they've missed me. They tell me they've missed me. They're like, you left us for the UK, come back. So I really want to like spend some time investing, because we've got a lot of great champions over here, and we've a lot of future talent. Obviously, Ian Gary is representing us in the UFC right now.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next one. I was gonna be like, how about Ian Gary? But you beat me to it.
Obviously, Ian, like I get goosebumps thinking about Ian, because I've interviewed him so much. I've interviewed him before his professional debut. I've been interviewing him in this journey, and to see him grow and to see him actualize his goal, his vision for himself. And obviously Layla, his wife, is a very close friend of mine. So it's one of those things where, you're rooting for your friends and rooting for, you just want them to win so badly. And I just think he's doing such a fantastic job. And he is a perfect representation of living it. He doesn't, I can't tell you how disappointing it is when you follow or support a fighter and you back them and you like literally feel like you're in there with them when they're fighting, and then they don't live up to the athlete expected lifestyle outside of the cage or the ring or whatever it might be. It's really disappointing because it's like maybe it's from a personal journey for myself where I'm like, oh, you've got such a short window, just live the life for like 5 years and like make history for yourself, and then do whatever you need to do. But listen, that's another podcast in itself. But yeah, Ian is amazing. Obviously, Paul Hughes, Reese McKee, all these guys coming up in Cage Warriors. We've obviously got James Sheehan. There's Solomon King Simon. There's all these great fighters that are coming up in Cage Warriors, and we've had some great fighters past present. Obviously, we have Connor as well, but let's not forget Connor. And hopefully he'll be back in the UFC, although I don't know.
I don't know. It looked like
I think
BKFC to me. It looked like him and Mike Perry squaring up. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what I
yeah,
saw.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like he's obviously I met him last week, and he's just I don't know how he could. He's so bloody busy in everything that he's doing. Like he's a legit businessman these days. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how he can where he's going to squeeze in the time, and he's got kids as well. So I don't know, but we will support Connor no matter what, no matter where in the world he is. But yeah, so long story short, Fight Connect TV, and also if you're in Ireland or the UK, I'm doing some bits with Virgin Media Sport as well. So it's pretty exciting. But thank you, Ryan. I appreciate your time.
No, likewise. And I just love the Ian reference too, because not that he had to, but he's left Ireland and gone all around the world, going to all the best fight teams, soaking in all of that knowledge. And similar
Yeah.
journey I'm on, being able to talk to someone like yourself, being able to listen to your interviews and taking that knowledge. That's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this selfishly because I want to learn, I want to hear, and I believe these type of interactions and building valuable relationships are one of the ways to do that. And so thank you for coming today, joining from across the world, and really looking forward to putting this out. I think there's just a lot of gems that you dropped today, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you so much. And I genuinely really, really enjoyed it. I do a lot of like, podcasts and people ask me to come on their shows and stuff, and they're always good and I always enjoy them. But today was really, really, I thought your questions were brilliant and I really enjoyed it. So I look forward to doing more, and I look forward to seeing your journey as well with the podcast. So best of luck with it.
Thank you. We'll have to have you on after the next fight, but thank you so much.
100%.
Thank you so much, and really
Thank
looking
you,
forward to
Ryan.
see what you do next. Have a great day.
Take care. See you later. Bye bye.